I guess if you have a question and your audio video is on, put your hand up and I'll call on you.
Shirley, it's a wonderful speech, and I really learned a lot today. And the struggle I have being a leader, where I am in the club, Toastmasters Club, is conflict resolution. That's the toughest thing. I have so much fear. I don't know how to handle conflicts at this point of time. Uh,
Well,
yeah.
conflict is not easy, and I will have to admit that later on I was in a situation that I could not resolve a conflict between two people. And that was, but they were both must have been alike, and they just had their back up and nothing was gonna say. So I'm not going to say that whatever you do to manage to handle conflict, you got to do, you got to address it. And if it's between two people, you've got to ask for each of their perspective and the whys of their perspective, and then talk about, I would say, depending upon what the situation is, if they each openly share what's bothering them, and you see a solution, it's easier for somebody, an observer, to see a solution than the two that are in conflict. But then you ask them, are they willing to listen to you as you put forth, this is critical and this is affecting your performance. So, are you willing to listen to some ideas that could make a difference? And if they're not, say, well, this is what we're going to do. This is what we're going to do. We're going to look at it from this perspective. Thank you. And Deborah, did you have your hand up?
Thank you, thank you. We have few hands up. So, Deborah, do we have a question, or we have other people who has raised their hand?
I saw a hand go go through the
Yeah.
you
We have
No,
Sonia,
I'm good.
Pauline. Yeah.
So I thought it was a question. Okay, but
No,
I've got is that Sonia? Is
Yes,
did I
yes. Hello, Pauline. Yeah,
Hi.
hi. Very nice to hear your span of leadership from.
Sonia, you went on mute.
Oh, sorry. I
Yeah,
don't
please,
there.
please repeat the
At my
question.
screen is, yeah. So, I don't know if we have time to talk about how leadership has evolved in the last, since you were a leader to today, things at and workplace, how things have changed, and if you have any suggestions for people. I know the topics that you discussed are relevant regardless of the workplace, the decade or whatever. It is very important being considerate, being cautious, being diligent, being caring. And I loved your story about the when you firing for the first time, how you were the one crying.
Yeah.
It was that shows how caring you are. And of course that has changed over the decades, where now firing is over social media, or it has completely, there is very little empathy right now, even though the person feels it, they are not allowed to show it sometimes as well. So I just wanted to hear about your if you've heard of anything, and how you would like people in this generation of leadership to carry on with any new nuggets.
I don't know of new methods, but I think in any leadership in any era, caring is important. I mean, of course, I had heard a speech in Toastmasters recently from this woman who had to fire somebody one time. It was an experience similar to what I had. And she was just not prepared and didn't feel good about it at all. It was just awful to her. But she said they kept their friendship up afterwards. And I thought, well, that's amazing, and that can happen. And I think, you look at the whys and wherefore. Why is somebody being fired? Now I wasn't given much. I mean, although I had an idea about why we were firing her, because she wasn't as good a worker at not her, she was always having trouble with her books. We were always having trouble with her books. But anyway, it was not like we were laying her off and she might come back at a future time or anything like that. But anyway, and I was not given any information, and I felt like, the branch manager walked out, told me that, and walked out the door, and that was it. So and I was so unprepared, but I did what I had to do, and that's why, I mean, and I liked her a lot. She was a very nice person. So sometimes personalities don't hack it. But it was, and I guess if given the choice, I would have continued to put up with her until I felt like that she was dragging the other bookkeepers down, and causing them more work. But still, it's a little bit disconcerting when you have to fire somebody because of poor performance, because that's hard to handle, that's for sure. How
Yeah.
do you handle that so that you perform the task, but they understand, and are left with, this is be the hope, to think about how can I improve so I don't have that problem in the future. But that's being very optimistic.
Yeah, I also liked your differentiation between mentoring and role model, because you're right. We look up to people and the difference. So yes, I know a lot of people have questions. So thank you again so much, and I'll get with Divya to learn more about Wovi. I've been hearing it, and I want to know more about it.
Okay, you got to do that. Glad to hear that. Thank you very much.
Thank
Uh-huh.
you.
Who else has a question? Who's next?
We have Rajni. She had a question. Hi, Rajni. Kindly unmute.
Hi, Pauline. This is Ashwa here.
Uh-huh.
And the take-home message for me is we need to listen to people more than what we say to them. That's the real golden message for me. And my question is, if I give you 100 leaders of the similar caliber, 50 of them are men and 50 are women, how do women leaders deal with the situation? What way they differ from the men leaders?
Now, I may be wrong about this, but this is my personal opinion. I think that women come across more empathetic. I think men go straight. Well, this isn't a nice thing to say, but I'm going to say it anyway. Men go straight for the jugular, and they get it done. That's it. But women, don't they're more empathetic, and I would rather be fired by a woman than a man. Of course, I've never been fired by either, so I don't know what it would be like. I've had to fire myself once, though. Our company was not doing well, and I had to say, well, this is it. I'm out of here. We don't have enough money to afford me anymore. But anyway, I think that women are more empathetic. One of the things we do in WOBI, women also are not as self promoting as men. And I know this absolutely from hearing personal experiences from women who are HR directors. Case in point, HR director at DFW Airport. And she says that men will do all sorts of things. They'll get her assistant flowers and candy to get on her calendar so they can talk to her about their future. but women don't do that. Women just don't even try to get that opportunity to talk with her. Women don't self-promote hardly at all. So we have an exercise in WOVI that's sort of a practice of that came out of that conversation I had with that woman. Because it is true, men are more comfortable, or it appears to me that men are more comfortable sharing their abilities, and a little bit, I'm just saying sharing, although sharing slash bragging about their abilities, than women. Women don't do that easily. And I say this, and this is what this exercise, how this exercise started in WOVI, is in Texas, if it's the truth, it ain't bragging. So you can quote me on that in the vernacular. But anyway, because it is, but women are not comfortable in general. I'm not saying there's not a woman out there that's not there may be somebody out there, woman out there that is comfortable in bragging, but in general, women are not. And the other thing about that part, women, and of course, I'm more aware of women, so I'm sorry I'm focusing on that. Women, some women don't like to hear other women brag. So they think, oh, she's proud of herself or something, but that shouldn't be, women should be supportive of each other in any circumstance. As men should be supportive of each other, but also men should be supportive of women, and women should be supportive of men. And I feel strongly about them, that those variables.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much.
Anybody else?
Yeah. Thank you, Ashwat. We also have Annette.
Good morning. Thank you, Pauline. You answered my question, so I will just make this comment nice and short and let others continue to ask their questions. This is the Network Sally from Southwestern Illinois
Yes,
and a member of
good
WOBI.
to hear your voice.
Good to see you. The question I was going to ask was just about that, women self-promoting. And I will just say, that is the reason WOVI works for me, because I'm getting comfortable with the uncomfortable. Self-promoting is not a bad thing. And that's how I'm overcoming it, and it's working. But the environment must be supportive. The environment must be empathetic in that knowing that it is an uncomfortable thing for women to do, but the more we practice and we show that we care, genuinely care, and relationships matter. Pauline, thank you for WOVI. Thank you for creating the solution for helping women be comfortable in the uncomfortable, and it will be a norm very, very soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Annette. Appreciate that comments. Beautiful. I
You're
will
right.
say, this, that when I was running to be on the executive committee at Toastmasters, because you don't run for president, you run for I think it was third vice president when I did it, and then you climb the ladder after that. But you learn a little bit, but I wasn't comfortable about bragging about myself, and I talked in terms of, more often than not, of a we instead of an I. And I believe that in so many cases there are too many eyes out there, especially in leaders. You shouldn't, it's only an I thing when it's your pure comment, or your pure belief, or your pure individual belief or individual theory or something. But are you? It's an I when you share the problem that it's been caused, that I did it, and that's something that's a leadership. I should have brought that up, because a leader doesn't blame anybody else. A leader takes the blame, because the leader gets credit generally. So why shouldn't the leader take the blame? Because that's that, and that's hard to do. And especially it's hard to do if you're dealing with somebody else's problem. I have to share one brief story with you about I've never been good about sitting down with somebody and giving them instructions on what they needed to do. I mean, I can do that for their learning, but if I have to correct them, that's difficult. And so when I worked where I worked when I joined Toastmasters, the town of Addison, I a coworker of mine was out on maternity leave, and her staff, she had one person that worked for her, uh, worked under her, I guess I would say, had done something wrong, and I had to correct her. And I didn't have the relationship with her like I had with my assistant. And anyway, I did a terrible job of it, and I don't remember how it went because I put that out of my brain, I think. And years later, I got feedback about that, about how I handled it was so bad, so poor. And I thought, oh my gosh, can you believe that? It's still something that's hanging out there. And I wasn't working there anymore, hadn't worked there for 10, 15 years. But anyway, it's just, when you know your employee, when you know your team, and I think you should. Another case in point where I worked in Washington, D.C., one of the women lived in the city, and she had teenage children. And whenever she needed to go early from work, she went because it wasn't safe. Things were not safe then for her children, and she needed to go. So she got some special privileges that others didn't get. But that was, if you she needed it and deserved it. She was a good worker, she deserved it, but also she needed it because she couldn't perform her job as well if she was worried about her kids. So sometimes you do show some preferences in one way or another, just so long as it is not to the detriment of too much of somebody else. Okay, anybody else got another question out there, or is my time over?
Yeah, Pauline,
Yeah,
we have few
ma'am.
questions in the chat box. We'll come back to you, Kishore, just a minute. So, how to motivate team members to do their best?
I think by showing appreciation for what they do and for seeing what that best looks like. And then you compliment them. Sometimes somebody, whether they are a volunteer or whether they are like my Toastmasters and WOVI experiences, or whether they're an employee, they don't know their value. They don't know, and so they need to be told what they bring to the organization and how important that is to the organization. I don't think that I necessarily do that as well as I should and could. So I need to make myself a note, and I try to appreciate people, and especially, the people that I led in Toastmasters and the people I lead in WOVI. But I will say this, WOVI is an incredible organization, and we have some incredible members that fulfill our mission and vision. Did that answer your question sufficiently?
Yeah,
I,
ma'am. Very good evening, ma'am. This is Kishore from India. Madam, my query is on the subject of conflicts. See, nowadays conflicts have become order of the day. You take the workplace, you take a friend circle or relative circle or household. Conflicts have become order of the day. So, we would like to have few tips how to avoid conflicts, madam. Do's and don'ts, how to avoid conflicts.
That's a tough one. That's a tough one. I think whatever you do, whether you get paid for it or whether it's volunteer work, you always do your best. And not only that, if you're doing your best and I'm your leader, whether it's at work or in a volunteer situation, I, as your leader, need to recognize and appreciate and show that appreciation. It's one of the things that I did for one person, which was unusual, but it worked, is when I was a district governor, I had an area governor come to me and said, "I'm trying to get into law school. Would you write me a letter of recommendation?" And I had never been asked to do that before, but I thought, okay, whoo, sure I would, I guess I will. And so I wrote her a letter of recommendation, and I'm sure she had others as well, but she got into that law school. And I had to think about how you would verbalize what a volunteer did to give it more credit, or the credit it deserved, so that the people who read that letter would recognize her talents and abilities and her experiences. And I think that it doesn't matter whether you're paid or you're a volunteer, you need to give the same degree of caring and respect to your post, as well as to the people that you're working with or you're volunteering with. And I think people who volunteer get more out of it than they realize. I've seen Toastmasters. My experience is longer, although Wovie's over 10 years old now, but or more than that. But anyway, I've seen people's lives change because of their volunteer work, and you've got to you can't beat that if you're doing something that's honorable. And I'm on a slight mission to make, instead of being called servant leaders, for us to call it something else that's more royal, I guess I should say. And because I think, oh yeah, we're servant leaders, but look at what we're doing. And years ago, the royals in England had to do certain things that were service. It was part of the expectations from the crown, I guess. But anyway, okay, I've talked too much. Thank you all very much
Yeah.
for listening.
Okay, madam. Thank you.
It's been a pleasure being with you this morning. And anybody, come check Wovie out. Got to throw that in there. We'd love to have you check us out, and I think you would get a lot out of it. And I think it's wonderful what you're doing here, and I love that you have a Toastmasters club there. Toastmasters can do so much for you. I'm going to close with this other comment. When I was international president, my theme, they don't do this anymore, but I regret that. My theme was make a change for the better. And I think it's critical that we in life, whether it's in our work or our volunteer work, make a change for the better. Thank you all very much for listening, and I appreciate your questions. Good morning.
Thank you so much, Pauline. That's a very enlightening session for us. We learned a lot from you today. And I am part of both Wovie and Toastmasters, as being members of both organizations. I've been learning a lot. I think over the years, I'm becoming a better leader and a better person as such. I really appreciate the concept of Wovie. I really enjoy hanging with other members, and I feel like I am in the tribe. I find my own tribe. Like-minded people who have similar problems or the challenges that I am facing, and we all complement each other. We support each other, and same with Toastmasters too. People push you a little further. Every single speech, you push yourself, and the other leaders push you a little further. So wonderful organizations. And we also have Meditation Magic. We are all volunteers here. It's all like a non-profit. So servant leadership. So I've been evolving, leading this organization as well. So wonderful session, Pauline. We really appreciate your time today. And all the question and answers also have been very wonderful.
If
I
I
think
may, I will
Yeah.
close with one positive statement about Toastmasters.
Yes.
My first club that I joined, it was a new club, but a year or two later, a gentleman joined our club, and he was a member for a while. And then I also knew him in Dallas ASTD, American Society for Training and Development. And he told me, and I love this because it's just a sentence of acronyms. He said that he got more out of his DTM in Toastmasters than he did out of his MBA at SMU. And I thought, wow. And he became a business owner. You know, he started his own business and was very successful at it. And that's where he was when he told me that. And I thought, oh my gosh, listen to that. I love all those acronyms. Thank you for letting me make that one final comment. And everybody have a great day. And think about what leadership you want to take, because you will grow incredibly if you're involved in any leadership. Toastmasters, WOVI, be involved.